learning how to self-cannulate, sticking yourself with hemodialysis needles. Can you do this in center, or do you have to learn how to do it when you decide to do your treatments at home? Let's talk about it. When they say the new dialysis tech is gonna stick my fistula, and this is the tech. No, thank you. After posting this image, I got a few comments, some questions, and I want to go through exactly what this individual was asking me, because she had a lot of questions, and I think it would be great for me to just describe it in a video form. We'll call her SE. First question: do you self-cannulate in center? I did learn how to self-cannulate in center when I was around 19 years old, 19, 20, around there. And the reason was because when I finally got my fistula developed enough to get ready to use, I remember that day I was very nervous, and a tech who was a veteran as far as doing what she did, working in that field for many, many years, was comfortable. But again, I was a little bit nervous, and I think my energy might have rubbed off on her, because when she went in, boom, I just felt something. It felt like a mini explosion in my arm. And she was just like, oh no. My arm automatically began to swell. And for the next few weeks, it turned black and blue and was the size of my thigh, all the way up to here to my hand. What happened was what is called an infiltration, when the blood is leaking out of the fistula or the vein and it's basically damaged, right? When that happened, they had to go back to my catheter, which was still in my chest, just in case. And it was just a whole ordeal and a process that I did not want to have to experience ever again. The second time it happened, I was just done. This is enough. And I told myself that I need to learn how to put these needles in. Mind you, these needles are not tiny by any means. So when I decided to learn how to put the needles in myself, I was in center with my nurses around me, my dialysis techs. And I think that was a better way to learn how to do it, just because I felt more comfortable being in that setting. So this person goes on to say that I've been wanting to learn how to do that, put the needles in herself, but so that I'm not at the mercy if my expert tech isn't there. That's what a lot of people do. They find one nurse or one tech that can actually put the needles in very smoothly with a limited amount of pain, and is not in there digging. You know what I'm saying? I've had nurses before just digging, trying to find the vein or to get it to when you draw the blood back, and that can be extremely painful. This person, again, she says that I'm close, but not quite over the fear hump. That is extremely common, to be fearful of these Hulk needles. I was very scared in the beginning, but once you get over that hurdle, I'm telling you, you don't want anyone else to ever stick you after that. You become so confident and empowered that you do it yourself. And because you know your arm, you know your fistula or your graft, you rarely feel the pain as if someone else is doing it. Because when someone else is doing it, you're kind of anticipating, you're tensing up, and you're looking away. But when you do it yourself, your mind is already programmed to, okay, this is what we got to do, and then just commit to it. Don't hesitate. You just go. And the more that you do that, the more you build that resilience in your mind and in your movements, your muscle memory. And I'm telling you, you will be so proud of yourself. And then once you do that and you're in center, you have just taken over half of the battle. Half of the battle. She goes on to say, some days I feel that I can do it. Other days seem more scary, because it is. You're dealing with blood. You're dealing with sharp objects. A gentleman the other day, when I was speaking to him in center, he said, I'm not going to stab myself, right? I never heard nobody say stab myself, but that is what you're doing almost. But again, when you put the needles in yourself, it's a completely different ball game, 100%. I'm afraid that I will infiltrate myself. I personally, and everyone that I know that does home hemodialysis or sticks themselves in center, that I know of, have never infiltrated themselves. And I think that's because when you do it, you have your own technique and an angle that you hit it pretty much every time, depending on if you have a buttonhole site or if you're sticking with sharp needles. That is honestly one of the ways so you can mitigate or you bypass infiltration. Because I think infiltration happens when every time you get a different tech or a different nurse sticking you, everybody sticks differently, right? So you might get Sarah and Tanya, each one get that nurse a different day, and they're sticking at a different angle because they're just different people. And what I've learned is when you learn how to stick yourself, time on dialysis in center, it kind of speeds up a little bit. And what I mean by that is, I'll tell you a quick story. When I was in center, and again, I learned how to stick myself at a very young age, there would be people waiting in the lobby, sometimes for 45 minutes, an hour, 2 hours sometimes. When I would come in, I would park my car and I would go straight into the lobby, but I would never wait anymore. I would just go to my chair. And everybody that was waiting in the lobby would kind of get angry, like, why are you letting Marcelo go? I've been waiting. He needs to wait. But what they didn't know and what they didn't do was they didn't self-cannulate. Well, Marcelo sticks himself. Marcelo tapes his arm up and gets everything ready. I always say this when I share my story because I really got to this point. I used to get to the point where I would be like, all right, I put the needles in myself, but then I was telling the nurses, why don't you just show me how to set up the machine? I'll just come, I'll set up my machine, put my needles in, and y'all pay me a little bit of money, then I go home, I leave. I forget all about it, right? Because, it's like a part-time job doing dialysis, especially when you do it at home. But the feeling of just taking responsibility and accountability for your treatments and having that power of doing your dialysis, the flexibility of when you want to do it, man, it is priceless. I am not on no one's time but my own, right? And that makes a huge difference. So again, learning how to put the needles in yourself, you get to the chair, you don't have to wait, you tape yourself up, and it makes your treatment just go a lot more smoother, a lot more faster. And on top of that, you're reducing the amount of stress on all the techs and all the nurses, because we gotta put ourselves in their shoes sometimes. They gotta do the same and put themselves in our shoes sometimes, right? But for them, it can be very stressful to put to put us on and take us off. If we're cramping or 3 people are cramping at one time, there's a lot going on. So just try to have compassion and empathy, and help them help you, right? Help yourself, and by that, you're helping them, all right? So learn how to put those needles in yourself. I promise you will be better off. If you speak to your nephrologist and you speak to your dialysis team, they might be able to help you train while you do your dialysis treatments and help you to guide the needles in, right? It's called the angel method or the guided method. So that is something that it's on a clinic to clinic basis. So speak to them and see what they say. Just because you go in center doesn't necessarily mean you're gonna have to put the needles in yourself. Have you ever infiltrated your arm? So again, to answer that question, me personally, after sticking myself, no, never. Never had a blood clot, never had a problem, never had an issue ever since I've been sticking myself. Were you a fairly easy stick before? There were times that it was difficult to get the needles in, right? There was times where I was wanting to develop a buttonhole site and it would develop, but then I couldn't get it. And then I would have to go back to sharp needles because a buttonhole needle like this one is not sharp, right? When you begin dialysis and you stick the fistula, you're gonna use sharp needles. I couldn't do that if I had a sharp needle. But for many years, I'll be honest with you, for many years, it took a while for me to get a stable buttonhole site, which I have now. And I've had this stable site for about maybe 4 years now. But it was off and on. I would use sharp needles, one buttonhole needle, and then sometimes I would just have to use 2 sharps because my arm, my fistula, it was just having issues over the years. But thank God, I'm in a good place now and we're stable. And her last concern and question is, I'm a hard stick. So she's saying that she's a hard stick. It's hard for her for them to put the needles in her. And that they had problems, which gives her more fear, but also more reason to learn. I love that she ended with that, because that's showing that she has that warrior spirit, like that resilience, right? That she wants to step up to the plate. And I admire that and I commend that with all of my heart, because that's what you want to do. You don't want to let the fear and all the obstacles get in your way, because like I said before, it was very difficult for me to put the needles in myself. And to be 100% transparent, when I was living in Houston, Texas for 5 years, I would do nocturnal hemodialysis, right? And there was a couple Filipino guys there, Reggie and my other friend, I can't remember his name. I think it was Jimmy, if I'm not mistaken. But they were so awesome, man. So sweet, so cool, man. I loved them, man. They invited me back to the Philippines. They were so cool. But they were the only 2 guys that I would ever let stick me, because they were so good at it. There was times where I would be tired and I just wanted to get to the clinic and lay down and just rest and didn't have to think about it. And you know, they would get me. They would even, because again, I was doing nocturnal, I would be sleeping, right? They would tell me that it's time to finish my treatment and don't worry, Marcelo. And then they would take the tape off for me and they would even hold my site. And I really never let nobody do that, because I just always wanted to be independent. But they did it for me, man. And I just remember, like, I would tell them, thank you, brother. I'm just so exhausted. I'm so tired. It's okay, just rest. I got you. And that was a blessing. That was a blessing to have. But try. What I can say is this. I'll end it with this. Talk to your team. Next time you go to dialysis, let them know that that's what you want to do. You want to learn how to put the needles in yourself so you could be more independent and more just confident in yourself and in your treatments. And in the beginning, start with just one needle. Start with just one needle. Just get it in the arterial, boom, or wherever your fistula is at. It could be right here, but just try to get it one time with them there. And if you mess up, don't worry. Just relax, chill out, and whenever you're ready to come back to it, come back to it. But I'm telling you, once you get over this and you've been doing it for a few months to a year, you're gonna be a completely different person. And I'll be here on the other side waiting for you. And when you do that, then we'll take it to the next step. And we'll cross that bridge when we get there, okay? So if y'all have any other questions, any other comments, you can tune into my Facebook group, Marcelo Antonio Pena, Living on Dialysis, Experiencing Dialysis, Celo 3K, and a few other ones that I have. But you can also follow me on my social media. Everything will be in the description. Like, subscribe. Let's get this information out there to people, man, because people are suffering on dialysis, and we are here to show them that you can truly thrive while living and experiencing dialysis. So again, my beautiful people, thank you so much. Celo Effect in full effect. Until next time.